test your swimming trivia today. Because if you didn't know, How to Breathe Underwater is about a swimmer. I guess I'll just tell you a little bit if you don't know what it's about. It's about Kate, and she is a competitive swimmer. And then she finds out that her father, who was also her swim coach her whole life, is cheating on her mom. So she has to quit the team and figure out who she is outside of swimming and outside of her father, and it's all very dramatic. So we're going to do some swimming trivia. So I have a beautiful towel here that has like popsicles and stuff on it. Okay. If anybody, and you can use Google because Jeremy said the questions were too hard. So if you have to Google it, that's fine. So can anyone tell me the 4 swim strokes? No, you can't.
Butterfly, breaststroke, backstroke, and freestyle.
Okay. Can anybody name 2 professional swimmers that are not Michael Phelps? For a jumbo beach ball. That's one. Okay. Yeah, it's gonna have to go to Jeremy. Yeah.
Greg Louganis, that's a good one.
Okay.
One more.
One more?
You can have more spits.
Yeah, you should listen
Somebody
to them.
decides what everybody else.
Yeah, right? You deserve it. I forgot about Greg Louganis.
So, number 2?
She gave me Mark Smith.
Yeah.
It's fine. You've got teamwork. Okay. And then I have a pool float that is shaped like pizza, guys.
Wow.
But you have to tell me how many overall Olympic medals Michael Phelps has.
Is it 7? It's 7. Yes.
It's not 7. It is at least 7.
That's it. Oh.
Isn't it 28?
It's
23?
19.
22.
24.
25.
32.
26.
Come on, guys. You're so close.
29. 28.
Good job, guys. At least you tried. Okay, I'm going to have my good friend Megan come up. She's going to read the first scene for you because she is more beautiful than I am. So she's going to read.
All right. How to Breathe Underwater by Vicky Skinner, Chapter 1. I could see the swimmer beside me every time I came up for air. His face was distorted slightly by the plastic separator that divided his lane from mine. But I could see him pushing, his arms pumping fast. I was faster. I was always faster. I pulled ahead, closing the distance between the wall and me until my fingertips touched and I came up for a deep, refreshing breath of chlorine-scented air. God, Kate, Harris, short distance butterfly, and my best friend said and panted. He'd come up out of the water a whole 4 seconds behind me. He needed to get his time down if he was going to make it to state. Give a guy a break. I was sucking in air too, but each breath seemed to scream out my accomplishment. Harris might have been bigger than I was, but he would never be faster. Give you a break so you can get lazy? I don't think so. He pressed his back to the wall and closed his eyes, sinking into the pool just enough for his chin to dip below the surface. Thank God I'll never have to race you for real. That could really bruise my ego. Maybe if my dad had quit his desk job to coach the swim team, I'd be as good as you. He grinned over at me and I splashed him with a handful of water. I snorted. Yeah, right. It's called natural talent. I was mastering the dolphin kick while you were still in floaties. Harris, out of the pool. Coach Judd, assistant girls swim coach, called to us. We need girls in first. Harris held his arms in the air, dripping. But Coach isn't even out here yet. He gestured toward the door behind us, where Coach Masterson, head coach for the girls and boys swim teams, and my father had disappeared 10 minutes earlier for a parent-teacher meeting with Jenny Carther's mom. We were 2 weeks away from the start of school, a month away from the start of the season, and he was already lecturing parents. Coach Judd rolled his eyes. Doesn't matter. He'll be ready to go any minute, and I need the girls ready to go too. Out! Harris sent me an irritated look, but did as Coach Jed asked. I did the same, splashing up out of the water and sitting on the edge of the pool, my legs still knee-deep. Everyone else was hanging out in the stands and on the side of the pool, their suits dry. Over by the bleacher, April, a master in all events and Harris's girlfriend, blew him a kiss. Beside her, Jenny Carther rolled her eyes. "Hey, Jenny!" Chuck, 100-yard backstroke, bulkiest and slowest on the varsity team, yelled out, "When's Mommy gonna buy you implants so you can fill out your suit?" Coach Jude made a disgruntled noise, but didn't call Chuck out. Jenny Carther, breaststroke, leg of the 200-yard medley relay, and exceptionally self-conscious for someone who weighed 130 pounds of almost pure muscle, bolted from her spot poolside and raced by me. I listened to her bare feet slapping the floor until she threw open the door to my father's office, probably to tattle on Chuck. I didn't turn to watch the scene, instead massaging my sore calves in the warm pool water. But after a moment, everyone went quiet. I looked up at Harris to say something, but immediately forgot what it was when I realized that every member of the girls' and boys' swim teams were looking in the direction of Coach's office, like a car had just crashed into it. I turned to look, and my mouth fell open. Inside the office, Jenny Carther's mother and my father were making out against his trophy case, and it was embarrassing how long it took for them to realize that every athlete on the swim team was watching them. Finally, they broke apart, my father's eyes finding mine amid everyone's, and the horror on his face matched the horror that had settled in my chest. Before the end of the day, the swim team had spread the word about my father's little slip-up. It felt like everyone in Salem knew, and it didn't take long for my mother to get wind of it as well. A month later, my mother and I were moving to Portland to live near my sister, Lily, and my life was completely ruined.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, so I had some questions. I had some, we had our bowl up here for questions. But if you have questions, just raise your hand. Jeremy's going to be in charge of calling on people. And if not, I'll start with our bowl.
We have a question here in the front.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, Katie.
What inspired you to become an author?
What inspired me to become an author? She asks. I just, there's a point when you realize that, you have one thing that you're passionate about all other things, and mine is books. I don't care about anything else the way that I care about books. And I love stories, and I love characters, and honestly, it was just books that inspired me to be a writer. I wanted to write things that changed other people's lives, the way that mine was changed by books. That's really Lauren's question. Oh, do you want to read it? I think you're supposed to read it.
Why swimming? Don't you like speed skating? And Anton Ono? Is that what this is?
It's the mom's question. Mom's always talking about Anton Ono and how he's better than Michael Phelps. Why swimming is a good question because I don't know how to swim. And I think that's why swimming, because when I was 13 and I saw a professional swimming competition for the first time, it was life-changing. I don't know if you ever watched hardcore swimming, it's beautiful, it's an art form. And I always wanted to do that, but I can't. So I just write about swimming instead of actually doing it.
When did you start working on the book?
This one particularly, I started in 2010, because that's the year we met. I started it right after we met. So 2010 was when I wrote the first draft. So I've been working on it for not consistently.
You
But
completed it last year? Or?
No. I completed it in 2010. And then I got my contract 2 years ago. And then edited it and edited it and edited it.
Who's your favorite author?
Who's my favorite? I have a three-way tie for favorite authors. Number one, Meg Cabot. If you know me, you know I love Meg Cabot. Sarah Dessen, who is my inspiration for all things. And Maggie Stiefvater, who I strive to be and will never ever be as good as her, but she's fantastic. If you've not read books by these authors, do so. I bet there are some in the YA section.
What's your favorite book?
That's not a question at all. Actually, currently, at this very moment, my favorite book in the whole world is Saint Anything by Sarah Dessen, which is a fantastic novel. It came out like 3 years ago, and I'm not over it yet. I actually read it every year because I love it so much. Current.
How do you begin to build out some of your characters? Do you model them off of people you know? Do you model them off of something else? Like, what's the process look like building characters?
It's different with every character. They tend to come to me in a situation. So like, Kate was a swimmer. Actually, originally when I wrote Kate, she wasn't a competitive swimmer. She was just a girl who had an accident in a pool and was terrified of water. And so that was kind of where she started. And so they all kind of start with these weird situations, like what would I do if I was in that situation? And then they just kind of, over time, because I don't immediately jump into a story with a character. I like to let it like sit. And usually about 6 months after I start thinking about a character, they'll have fleshed out enough. And yeah, it's details from like, I bet some of you guys can find yourselves in these books. Maybe not this one specifically, but you're all in there, let's be real here. And so it's little details from people, and sometimes people I don't even know. So, I see you, Dee.
I just said I'm afraid to ask.
You should be afraid.
So what was the first book you read that you went, I could do this?
That would be a book called All American Girl by Meg Cabot. And I read it when I was 13, and up until that point, like I was in all the AP classes, and all I had read was like Shakespeare and Dickens and Lord of the Rings and like this really intense stuff. I had never read anything about just like a normal girl. And I read All American Girl, which is about a girl who, while coming out of an art class, saves the president from an assassination attempt, and then falls in love with his son. It is the greatest novel. And I remember like it was so funny, and I remember just reading it and going, I could write something like that. Like I could write about me. I can't write Lord of the Rings, but I can write about me. I can write about girls like me. And so that's kind of when I got the bug.
Do you think you'll always stick with YA?
Probably. I can't say for certain. I've written a couple of adult novels, but I've actually already started thinking about how I could adapt them into YA novels, because YA is just it's more fun. It's so much more fun. Like, adult books are so sad. There's no, like, you know, and the ones that are funny are the ones that are, like, everybody's talking about because they're the only funny ones. So, adult books make me sad. So, I'm going to write YA probably till the day I die. Probably.
Why did you choose this as your first book?
I didn't. It's a funny story, actually, because I was working on it, and I was editing it, and I was going to send it out to agents, and then I decided it wasn't good enough. I was sick of working on it. I was like, I'm not getting anywhere with this. And so I put it on the Swoon site just to kind of like do something with it, and it was just kind of to me, it feels like a fluke that they found it, and I didn't ever intend for it to be my first book, but it is. And I'm very proud of it. It turned into something that I could believe in. It wasn't when I first started, but it turned into what I wanted it to be when I first started. So I'm proud of it. I'm happy with it as my first novel.
How long have you been writing?
I started writing in a journal when I was in 6th grade, and wrote in journals all the time. It was always with me until I got into college, and you don't have time for things like journals. But I didn't write my first novel until I was 15. I was a freshman in high school, and I've been writing books ever since.
Do you ever draw in the journals? Like looking back to 6th grade Vicky? Are you bringing some of that back?
No, because I'm not a good artist. I really want to be. Oh, draw! I thought you meant like draw. Like, oh yeah.
Inspiration.
Oh
Inspiration.
yeah. All of our dirty laundry from high school.
Yeah.
All of it. Yes.
More questions? We got one.
What's your favorite part of the novel writing process? Or this process that you went through for this book?
My favorite part is the very end of editing, when we start doing line edits, which is like that my editor goes through and picks out like every tiny little word that she doesn't like. I actually really like that because I'm a perfectionist, so like I want to make every word perfect and every sentence perfect, and it's like you're so close to the end and it's so close to being right where you want it. Like that's the sweet spot for me. I really like that.
Let's read the questions from
Yeah,
the
I
bowl.
should pick the questions. I know.
Okay. While writing this book, did you learn how to breathe underwater?
I should have seen that one coming, honestly. No. Although, like, I'm a little sick right now, and I kind of feel like I'm breathing underwater, so there's that. So.
Oh, we got a question maker.
Isabel wants to know, do you have any tips on writing?
Sure. My tips for writing, the number one tip, and you'll hear it a lot in the industry, is to write what you want to write and write what you like and not worry if other people like it or if they're happy with it or what they say about it. Like, write what makes you happy. Because a lot of people are like, well, I hate romance. Like, you mean like Twilight? Like, I don't care. I like it.
What scene in the book? I'm sorry. Raise my hand.
Yes, you.
What scene in the book really resonates with you? Like, what's your favorite scene in the book?
So this is going to sound really sad, but there's a scene early on in the book where she has her very first panic attack. And that one, it kind of always sticks with me because it was the easiest to write because I've like been there so many times. And it was so weird and surreal to put it on paper like that so blatantly. And so I really like that scene. So we should do both questions.
Bold questions. Yeah, we're almost out of time for questions.
Yeah.
2 minutes, you're good.
Are you ever going to have a character named Carson?
There is a very good chance that there will be a character named Carson someday.
Got one more bold question. When was the first moment I think we covered this, the first moment you realized you wanted to write this book?
Yeah, I talked about that.
Yeah, mostly.
This book.
This
You know,
book
well, I'll tell you a little tip. So, the love interest in the book, his name is Michael, and despite what some people think, it's not Michael. Michael is this man's middle name, and I wanted to write this book when I met him. So, I wanted to write about him. So.
I'm not a good swimmer though, so.
Well, in the book, it would be me. I would be the swimmer.
Yeah.
This is like a fantasy. I just want to swim, guys.
Any other questions?
Last chance.
Comments? Go ahead, Stan.
Have you ever considered writing a book about procrastination?
I feel like this is a trap. No.
Yes, Brittany.
I was going to ask, what's your process for story development?
Like, could you be more specific?
Well, how the story progresses.
Well, first I start writing, and then I go crazy and I eat too much. And then I put the book away and I don't look at it for 6 months because I hate it too much. And then I do the whole thing over again, and then I send it to my editor, and then she sends it back, and then I do the whole process over again. And eventually it gets to here. That's the process. Oh, real quick before we disperse, I want to say thank you to people. So obviously thank you for coming, and thank you for my wonderful husband for helping. He really hates being in the limelight, so this is nice. And thank you, Megan, for agreeing to read. I really appreciate it. And Mom and Kathy and everyone who helped set up, and Interabang for letting me do this because this is really fun.
Now, before we buy books and get them signed, I know we're all eager for it, but I want to let you know that we have a tradition here, and many of you in the audience can see, where we have authors sign the backs of our chairs. Would you be willing to sign a chair for me?
Please.
There we are.
It's like a rock star.
You are a rock star.
Yeah.
If you dated the, today is the 20th. Well, and then we're gonna take a picture with you in the front row. If you would sit down right there, ma'am. If anybody already has their copy, thanks, ma'am. If anyone already has a copy of How to